Bang ding ding, trademark. He come out 6'7" tall. Bang ding ding, one is star. Bang dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding. It is a perfect day.
Woke up to the sound of the garbage truck again. Upstairs neighbor's toilet's leaking on my head. Cars broke down, I missed the bus, there runs a 10. I had a feeling this was a day to stay in bed. I finally left my pad right on the jumbo's cloud roof. A police officer pulled out his gun and said, I said, so you got the wrong guy. I guess it's just a perfect day. It's just a perfect day. Na, 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 na,
Hey guys, welcome back to another great episode of Eggs. Today's guest is Myoshia Boykin-Anderson. Myoshia is the CEO and founder of AndTech Solutions. AndTech is a multi-seven-figure consulting firm providing custom application development and other technology services to some of the top U.S. companies and organizations. What makes this even more impressive is that Myoshia has done this with grit and hard work as a self-made businesswoman with no formal higher education or college degree. So without any further delay, please join me in welcoming our guest, Myoshia Boykin-Anderson.
Myoshia, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm great. Thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited about being here today.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you for making time for us. Really appreciate it.
We're thrilled to death to have you, and I can't wait to hear a little bit more about your story. We talk to a lot of people on this program, a lot of business founders and CEOs and people like that. But I think you have a particularly unique story. So it might be great to just sort of start there and maybe talk a little bit about your background and where you come from.
All right, cool. So I am a native Houstonian, born and raised in Houston, Texas. I grew up in the hood. I grew up in Third Ward, Texas, which is, we've actually really gained a lot of notoriety these days because I actually grew up with George Floyd. We actually grew up together. We went to the same schools from elementary all the way to high school. So,
Oh, wow.
growing up, of course, grew up in the inner city, and I didn't grow up with a lot of role models. When I grew up, actually, my mother was on drugs when I grew up. So I actually grew up really quick, like really quick. I've been taking care of folks and all of that. I was still very smart in high school. I, almost aced the SATs, and I had engineering scholarships and all of that. But I didn't want to leave my family to go off to school. So I never went to college, but I did take a class in high school. It was a computer class, and I literally fell in love with it. I fell in love with technology and all of that. So I started working in corporate America, if you will, when I was in high school. And I worked through this co-op program through some of the corporations in Houston and my high school. So back then I worked at what was then known as American General Life Insurance Company. It later became AIG and all of that. But that's where I worked. And I remember being at work as a young girl, seeing all of these grown women at work in their business attire and all of this. And they would talk, I remember they would talk back and forth. Hey, Sarah, do you know how to do this? And I remember slumping down in my cubicle, figuring out how to do it, and then popping up saying, Miss Johnson, I know how to do it. Like literally, that's where my love of technology started. So I graduated from high school, started working. I got pregnant and had a daughter at a really young age. And that is when, I think my outlook on life changed. Having a child really really, if you were not already, it grows you up really quickly. And I realized that I wanted more for her than I had, right? So I was already in love with technology. I had a daughter, and that's where my hustle and my grind and my desire for better started, right? And I remember working this job. I thought I had literally arrived. It was a great IT job. I was working for a systems integration company, and I was making pretty good money, but I was still a single parent. I was living paycheck to paycheck. And one day, my supervisor came into the office and said, "We've decided to close the office." And it devastated me. It literally devastated me. But I determined that day, and this was in February of 1998, I determined that day that nobody would ever have that power over me again, to determine where I would get my next dollar from, or how I would be able to take care of my family. And that's when the entrepreneurial bug was born. I didn't know how I was going to do it, because my initial responsibility was to go out and get another job. But I decided that day that I was going to start my own business, because I didn't want anybody else to ever come in and tell me I was fired, or we were closing the business, or any of that. So it took 9 months to actually start my business, but I did it. And 22 years later, here I am, an entrepreneur, having grown my IT consulting and strategy company to where it is today. And, the journey has been quite an interesting one, but I literally wouldn't take nothing for it.
Okay. So AndTech, is that your business, AndTech?
Yes.
Did you start that in 98 right after you got let go, or was that, did that evolve
Actually,
later?
This is my second company, actually. So the first one I started, it was funny because the day I started my business, I didn't know the first thing about running a business, had never been to college. I didn't even know what I was going to call my business. And the way I started it was that day when they told me they were closing the company. It was devastating, yes. But a lesson that I learned that day was how to see opportunity in every situation. So when I was leaving, after she asked me to help her close the office, because they literally said they were closing the office that day. Like I was literally devastated. But I remember thinking, not only am I going to be out of a job, but all of the clients that I served were going to be out of a service provider because they were closing. So I actually took that list and I started calling each of them. It took 9 months of them telling me no and me saying, well, do you mind if I call you next month? It took 9 months of that for me to get my first, not yes, but as a matter of fact. And I literally started my first company on that. So the first company I started in 1998, I ran that company for about 10 years, actually. And in 2008, I closed, actually the end of 2007. I took the whole year of 2008 to, take all of those lessons learned and all of those bumps across my head and, bumps on my butt, throughout that time. And I came back bigger and better. I started AndTech Solutions in January of 2009. And here we are 11 years later in this particular business.
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, obviously a lot to unpack in there. One of the things I want to just talk about that I've sort of observed, and I mean, I can even see it just now, you're sitting here with a smile on your face. Like you clearly have I guess sort of a point of view that, is optimistic to begin with, right? You were able to recognize these patterns. You're able to see these opportunities. And I think so much of that has to do with just sort of the headspace we're in, right? So, however, as you describe your story, you're talking about, hard times growing up, entering into a sort of motherhood at an early age and maybe like subprime conditions, like everything wasn't exactly right, yet here you are powering through and your head's kind of in the right spot and you're able to chase down this passion. Can you point to, are there any specific things that happened in you? Or are you just sort of naturally this way? Or was there something that you had to cultivate to sort of, I guess, be prepared to look at life this way?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but I'll tell you, I think first and foremost, it is my faith. It's literally my faith. I am unapologetically a Christian. And I truly believe that that faith in a God that's much bigger than me can provide big things for me. And I've literally held on to that from the way I think about my business. I dream big and I think big, and that makes me do big. So that has such a big impact on my outlook, because I tell you another thing, when you talk about headspace, my mindset now, I mean, this smile is on my face every day. It could be a storm all around me, and this smile is still going to be on my face, because no matter what's going on here, I know that it's worse somewhere else. So, I literally have a, buckle up, let's take this ride. Like literally, and I approach that in everything I do. Now, that doesn't mean, sometimes I'm sitting, in the room, bawling my eyes out and, and all of that. It doesn't mean that, but it does mean that I'm not going to stay in that place, right? Mm. That I'm going to feel whatever it is I need to feel. And then I'm keeping it moving. Like there is too much out there for me to do, and too many people watching what I do. I want to make sure that I'm living out loud, not only in front of my children and my family, but, the team that I employ, and, and those that I mentor and encourage and coach and all of that stuff. I want to live out loud. So this smile is going to always be plastered across my face.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's really great. And, especially given sort of your hard background, and I don't want to make too many assumptions about it or anything, but definitely finding your faith and having some understanding of, I guess, looking to find something that is stable in a world that's otherwise chaotic, I think probably would help a lot of people, whether it is faith-based or it's something else, just to find something that you can sort of cling on to that is rigid and concrete in your life, especially if you're exposed to a lot of chaos or, some difficult situations. I think that's a really critical point. So I think that's great. So yeah. Also just your interest in sort of, being a role model to others and sort of leading that way, I think is really important as well. I think, smiles and happiness are so infectious, and especially, as we're dealing with sort of COVID and all these times right now, and so many people are hurting or afraid or whatever else, I think to see kind of a bright light every now and then is really useful. So that's great that you're that way.
So in 2008, you started AndTech. Was the previous company a tech-based company as well? Why did you pick tech, and how did not having a college degree play into that? I mean, tech is one of those fields where you can do an online kind of approach and get into the tech industry without a degree. How did that work for you? And what's it like being, the non-degree person in the tech field? I mean, that's got to be hard to overcome. And then also being a minority in the tech field as well. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yes, definitely. Because it's like it literally is what it is. I am a Black woman in tech, and it is, without a degree. So it's definitely outside of the norm, right? So I chose tech, and I really think tech chose me. It sounds so cheesy. Tech chose me. But it really did. And I was thinking about this maybe a few months ago, but I was thinking about why tech, right? And I really think that, so I first got exposed to it in high school. And during those times, there was so much in my life that I couldn't control. The fact that I had found something that could literally be broken, and I can figure it out, right? And I truly believe that that's why I developed this passion for technology, because it allowed me to be a natural problem solver, right? And a natural analyzer, where I couldn't solve any of the other problems that were going on around me. So I truly believe that that's it. I am self-taught. Like, I literally have this mantra where I learn something new every day. And especially in the world of tech, I am constantly teaching myself something new, and, reading something new and ingesting something new, all of that. And it's not even all tech either. I just really have this philosophy that we just need to learn something new every day, even if it's, how many different types of watermelon are there, or whatever. But knowing a little bit more today than I did yesterday, right? So that is what has helped me maintain my relevance, in this industry and all of that. I literally just, I teach myself something new every day. I'm always staying on top of the latest thing that's out there. I'm always learning the new programming language, or now getting to a point where, as I identify what that new language is, I'm going to hire somebody that's a badass in it, right? So that I even if I don't know it, somebody on my team does, so that we're always on the cutting edge.
Yeah, technology is a challenge, and obviously very critical to stay up on things. And then I imagine too, just as you mentioned, as your role has grown and evolved, you've gone from the person doing the work to the person delegating the work. The needs of you are changing, right? You're not needing to learn the latest version of Java or whatever, but you might need to learn some new management techniques or something. So I imagine what you're learning and what you're reading, probably vary a little bit versus what you used to learn, when in your earlier days when you were learning, programming languages and things of that sort.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm, taking that same philosophy. I am, I really dive into, learning, making sure I understand what my leadership style is, and what the learning style of my team is. And yeah, to your point, just really making sure that I'm always the best leader that I can be. So, learning and reading and listening to and all of that stuff. I just really want to be able to show up as my best self in everything that I do.
Yeah. So as sort of an extension to Mike's prior question, just sort of citing some of the obvious, you don't see a lot of African-American women in technology, for one, let alone minus a degree, any of these other things, or just strictly being female even. These are sort of all counter to the stereotype anyway. Have you found, throughout your career, you're obviously a very driven woman, you don't seem like you would be dissuaded too often. If somebody talked crap to you or said something negative, I feel like you might have the personality that you just barrel through it. But I wonder if, in your experience, trying to be, overcome sort of these stereotypical hurdles, if you have come across issues like that and how you sort of addressed those problems or dealt with those situations.
Yeah. And there have been several, and there continues to be, even in 2020, there continues to be, all of those instances where I am made aware of the fact that I'm not supposed to be here, right? Mm-hmm. So, I'll tell you one scenario in particular. I remember pitching a proposal to this company, right? I worked hard on the proposal too. I made sure that all of my T's were crossed and my I's were dotted. I literally worked hard on this proposal. And I remember submitting the proposal and meeting with actually, they didn't even let me get through my whole proposal, but I met with them. I'm sitting in this conference room and they literally shut me down, literally shut me down. So I went away from the meeting being totally dejected, right? But I remember asking an associate of mine. I knew her. I forgot where she worked or how we knew each other. But anyway, she was a friend of mine, an associate of mine. She was this beautiful white lady, just beautiful, right? I gave her my proposal, guys, literally my proposal. And I had her to go in there and pitch to these guys. And they ate it up, gave her the contract, they were about to sign. She said, well, thank you so much. I have to go back and let my, they were getting ready to sign with her. I remember going back in, telling them, and, reintroducing myself, right? And we turned the project down. And it felt so good to be able to slap them in the face, right? It was so that type of audacious, those types of audacious situations happen all the time. And I am grateful that I'm in a position to be able to turn it away, because it could have been, it could have been a situation where I was not in that position, right? So I would have had to have taken it, because it was, don't leave money on the table, right? And but I am just so grateful and so blessed that I didn't have to take it, and that I didn't have to subject myself, knowingly that, yeah, we got the money for the project, yeah, but knowing that they did not want me there. So being able to be in a position to make those decisions for myself is a beautiful thing to me.
Yeah, it's nice not to have to take blood money when, it's like, I don't need it. And just so you know, this was me, and you had the opportunity to have me to begin with, but because of your, bias towards me, we don't want to do the job anymore. And there's something liberating to be in a position to be able to just say that and do that. Can you tell us a little bit about your current business, what you offer, how it works, what your ideal client is, and just kind of run us through that real quick.
Okay. So at AndTech Solutions, we actually provide just that, solutions. We leverage technology to be able to offer our clients, which are the small and medium-sized businesses. We cater to large corporations as well, but my passion work is in the small and medium-sized business realm, right? And what we do is we provide services that run the gamut. We provide, the small projects where we're probably coming in and we're automating maybe a spreadsheet that you use, every week. And, it takes you 12 steps to get this spreadsheet right. We'll come in and develop a solution where we're rolling all of that into one button, making your life easier, right? It may be that you are a small business, you're using all of these tools out there, none of them talk to each other. So we may just have to come in and work out some integration solutions where, you're able to report on stuff, because now all these tools are working together. And it may be that you have not been able to find a product on the market that meets your needs. We will develop a custom solution for you. So we develop mobile apps, we develop, customized websites, and just everything in between. So our biggest thing is really just creating solutions that would help entrepreneurs, small businesses and medium-sized businesses buy back some of their time, and leveraging technology to be able to do that.
Nice.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And I want to maybe circle back a little bit. It's funny because we certainly don't know each other. We've just met today, here we are on our first call, but I'm really fascinated by some of these aspects of your personality. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about, it was something you mentioned, is this idea of controlling what we can control. I think right now is maybe especially a good time to talk about something like that, just given sort of the state of the world and how things are in such upheaval. And I think that this sort of mantra, this idea of controlling what we can control, and in your case, you found it by way of learning some programming languages and being able to do some tech work. What do you think about, or what might you help, if you were giving advice, I suppose, to somebody who might be suffering right now? Maybe they can use this as a jumping off point to start a business or to get into some sort of thing. What could you talk to them about, control and just sort of, I guess, a little bit of rolling with things or being a little fluid in change?
Yeah, I would really say, it's like you said, especially in times like this, we could really make ourselves sick trying to just worry about the stuff that we cannot control. And we have to get to a point where we accept things for what they are, but then we intentionally, we can intentionally decide to deal with certain things, right? So I think now more than ever, we have to practice saying no, because unfortunately, especially as women, we want to control it all. We want to fix it all. And we can't fix this. We can't fix it. So At least we can't fix it overnight, like but we can't. And if we try, to fight that unfightable, battle too much, it would literally make us sick. So learning how to say no, we do not have to do it all, right? I had this thought the other day that, now we are forced to be in the same house with the people that, we live with. And that could be stressful in itself, right? But I had this thought the other day that, you know what? Who cares that he didn't fold the towels the way I want the towels folded? The towels got folded.
Say, have you met my wife? Like, she's not like my wife.
Because I'll tell you, I'm particular about that towel thing. It's a double fold. It's a fold back and forth. You have to do it like that. But I thought about it. Guess what? I didn't have to fold it. And it really helps me if I don't look at it too much. So yeah, don't look. But the towels are folded and I did not have to do it. So just stuff like that. From a business perspective, things look different now. Like things are just different. You can't fight that. So as a business owner, if you already had your business and you were used to doing things this way, it's not going to work right now. It's just not going to work. So rather than try to fight it, then all you have to do is shift it. And notice that I didn't say pivot. I think that word pivot is thrown around so much these days. We don't all have to pivot. You just have to shift a little bit. If you owned a restaurant, of course, it's not going to look the same. But all you have to do is shift, because the people that you serve still need to be served. It's just going to look differently, right? So now you just need to shift a little bit. They can't come in and delight themselves in your amazing cuisine that they just absolutely love. They love you. They love your food. So all you have to do is get that food delivered to them, figure out how to let them order online, and, just all of that stuff. People are doing it. It works. If you are a hairstylist, you're not getting your clients coming in to get their hair done anymore. But guess what? They're at home and they still want to look good. So all you have to do now is shift a little bit. And those amazing products that you use in the shop, put together a hair maintenance basket and sell that, right? So the way we serve is going to look different, but we still need to serve as business owners, right? And for those of you who have not started your business yet, and you've been talking about it, well, if only I could do this. Well, I can't do it because I'm working 9 to 5. And by the time I get home, guess what? This is your time. This is your time to get out there, because some of the hurdles and challenges and blockers that you had before are no longer there. You can do it. Trust me, you can do it. And I'm talking to you and you and you and you. I'm talking to you. You can definitely do it. I promise you, you can do it.
Well, yeah, no, I love that. Sorry, go ahead. I'm
actually kind of in a weird situation myself right now. I'm a nightclub DJ. Like that's my normal income, is playing in venues, and venues are closed. There's no dancing, there's no clubs, there's no, normal life for me. And so right now I'm currently in Nome, Alaska doing construction work, if you guys haven't noticed, like our listeners, we haven't had an episode in a few weeks because I've been up here doing construction, and it's kind of like, shit's kind of hit the fan and I don't have work, but now you just go where you got to go and you do what you got to do and you just get by. It's going to end at some point. Life's going to get back to normal, but do what you got to do until then,
Well, and I think that's what I like so much about your sort of, I guess, general attitude, Myoshia, is this idea that, the way you talk about it is so empowering, right? It doesn't feel like we're victims of this thing. Rather, it's not happening to us. It's just happening. Mm-hmm. And I think that, this idea, back to this, just sort of bring it full circle, this idea of controlling what we can control, and sort of, I really like your thoughts about saying no. I think being able to sort of look at what's going on right now as an opportunity. I mean, first of all, it's a mindset, but I think there's a lot of people who are focused, and like I do a lot of work in and around like remote work and things like that. And so I'm constantly being interviewed on this topic, the new normal. And I just, it makes me crazy because like I keep saying there is no new normal. Like today is normal and tomorrow will be normal. And, you know, there might be some chaos or whatever going around, but, you know, to your idea that, you know, we can't control all this stuff. So let's just, you know, get a wrap on what we can do, but make the best out of it and shift or move, you know, do what we can do. You know, I mean, Mike's, you know, obviously not wanting to just like do construction work, but he had to make a shift that was smart. And who knows what this will bear? You know, he's working with great people. He's, you know, having some great opportunities. You know, there could be some really great things that come from this, you know, so it may actually end up being a great opportunity rather than just a, you know, thing that we had to do because COVID happened to us. Yeah. You know, and so I think, you know, your message of sort of empowerment and this idea, you know, that you can sort of, I guess, take it back and own it versus standing around and being a victim, I think is a really healthy way of looking at it.
Yeah, definitely. And even, you know, Mike, when you think about it, so yeah, you can't, you know, DJ in the club anymore, but listen, you know, D Nice had more than 18,000 people listening to him. So listen, look, nobody can spin like you, nobody can cut like you. So you just have to listen, go out there and still give it to the people, go live, you know, mix for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And, you know, it could be your, you know, your jam session or whatever, and still bring it to the people. So they'll know. And it was interesting because he went live and literally, I tell you, I bet, and it was probably more than 18,000. It was 18,000 when I saw it. So, you know, just, you know, stuff like that. So again, shifting, not, you know, but still giving the people, still serving like the people, right? But yeah, I bet I'll be looking forward to it. Go ahead and put together a jam session and give it to the people.
Yeah. Well, it's, I don't know. I have a lot of friends that did the online streaming and stuff like that. And for me, I just don't feel right getting down to myself in my kitchen. You know, it's like, I feed off of the people in front of me, and exactly. Feeding off of a computer screen doesn't really work that well for me. But
yeah,
overcome, Mike. Overcome,
adapt, and change. So, how did you adapt and change with the COVID situation? Has your business taken a hit, or have you just been business as usual?
It's, you know, it started off business as usual, right? But I think when people really start saying, "Oh, like this is real, like this is for real," there were some projects that we had on the books that are now, you know, on hold indefinitely. So there was some revenue that was lost there. But what we did, I mean, we were already a you know, an online company in some regards, but I realized that in order for me now to meet my clients, because I did a lot of in-person consulting and all of that. So shifting to the online space was not that difficult for me. You know, we already played in that space and we were already having Zoom meetings and WebEx meetings and GoTo meetings and all of that. So that part didn't change for us. What changed for me initially, I remember when this first happened and everybody was laying their staff off and everything, I made a commitment to my team that I knew that people were going to have to deal with a whole lot of stuff. Like, you know, people were going to have kids at home that couldn't go to school. They were going to be in the house with, you know, their spouses, where they were used to being able to have this, you know, at least 8 hours away from each other. So people were going to have to deal with a lot of stuff at home. One thing I did not want my team to deal with was you know, worrying about their paycheck. So I made a commitment to myself that I was going to make sure that none of my staff lost their job. No hours were reduced. And I made this commitment even before the PPP was announced and all of that stuff. I knew personally that that's what I wanted to do for my staff. And if that meant I couldn't get paid, I made sure that everybody on my staff did not have to worry about their job. Now, I will say that I was only able to do that because of healthy money management, you know, ideals that I have now. That was not always the case. Now we're able to run a lean shop. And I am very blessed that my business is a multi-million-dollar business now. But I am not flossing. I don't waste money. I don't splurge. I don't do any of that. I enjoy my life and I live a pretty good lifestyle, but I'm not out there balling for the sake of balling. And then I don't have money, when something like this hits, right? So that's a lesson for you business owners out there. When it's good, enjoy the good times, but make sure that you are always looking towards the future, because if you're going to be a sustainable business, you have to do that, right? So that's one of the lessons, but we've definitely been impacted. And, our goals for this year may not be necessarily achieved, but we're not going to be that far behind because we've shifted, we've offered more services, and we're doing different things. So we're still able to sustain ourselves, even in the midst of all of this that's going on. You said something earlier, Ryan, that look, there is no new normal. It just is what it is. Normal isn't new. Normal is normal. Now, your normal may look different from day to day, but listen, we are where we are. We do not know how tomorrow is going to look. So you need to maximize whatever you can do today to make sure that you're good, period. Right?
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense, because as I think about COVID, there's sort of this micro and this macro version of it, right? There's the version where this is the global pandemic, right? And it's a quick and easy one to throw out. That's why I say, during COVID or whatever, right? That's the easy one. But everybody, for all intents and purposes, anybody could be living their own personal COVID any day. It could be whatever, right? It could be, loss of a job, loss of a loved one, loss of a house, loss of who knows, right? It could be anything. And so I think it is really important to recognize that, there are going to be external factors, things that are going to, contribute to your business both positively and negatively. And I think it is important to sort of to lead with that. I like that you mentioned the thing about being sort of money smart, because I've never been particularly one of those guys. I'm working on it. I'm trying to get better, but I've had a lot of years of not being that great with money. And as I'm getting older, maybe it's becoming more of a focus. But what I like is, initially earlier in our conversation, everything was like this optimist. It was like, we're just going to hit the wall. We're going to, pivot. We'll move. We'll just shake. We'll figure it all out, right? And we'll just keep moving. But I think what's good about this idea that you're also being cautious with money is that you're setting yourself up, or you're preparing for things, that may or may never happen, may or may not ever happen. And I guess I would call it like a cautious optimism, right? So you will roll with the punches, you will adapt, you will move around, you will do all that stuff. But that doesn't mean to not be prepared for that fail or that particular instance, or that, I don't know, somebody sues you or whatever. You just don't know what's going to happen. So it doesn't hurt to be smart too, right, along with the optimism.
Oh yes, definitely. I truly believe that. And you're right. Like there is nothing that we can't get past, right? Death, whatever. There is nothing that we can't get past from a death perspective. You may not be here to, but whatever, right? But there is nothing that we can't get past. But that still doesn't mean that you have to pour gasoline, you have to add fuel to the fire. Right. And being irresponsible and all of that. And trust me, like I was the worst with money. I just real quick. I remember when I first started my business, I used to say, wait, my mama doesn't have a brother named Sam and my daddy doesn't have a brother named Sam. So I ain't know who Uncle Sam was. So listen, I would make this money, y'all, and I would spend it. Those checks had my name on it. I would make the money and I would spend it. I would make it and I would spend it. So then when I started getting letters from the IRS, I just figured, listen, if I just ignore them, it'll go away. They do not go away. So I wasn't always that person. And it's grown over time. And now that I'm really trying to create this legacy, right? This legacy that I can leave, I've gotten much smarter and much more responsible with the resources So I'm trying to be a good steward now over all of my resources.
Yeah, and I imagine a little bit of it has to do with just sort of the state or the spot you are in business. Like for example, with me, I'm a little bit that way. Get it, spend it, get it, spend it. But it largely has to do with most of the time my staff is very small. It's at most I've got a couple freelancers or whatever, and it's really easy when it's just you and you're not accountable for anybody else. That to just sort of grab that check and grab that new pair of sneakers. But but once you start becoming accountable to others, right now all of a sudden you've got 2 or 3 paychecks to pay, or 4 or 5 or 10. As that starts to grow, you almost can't help but improve, because if you don't, you're just going to be in a constant state of heartache trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah, and it gets tiring trying to chase the checks and write a check on Thursday, but write it after 4 p.m. because that means you get an extra day, and it won't be you make it. It gets tiring. Nobody can keep up with that. And trust me, I tried. So I know. I'm not telling you something I read in a book. I know it's not easy. So yeah. But
well, so maybe that's a topic we could touch on quickly then, is sort of this idea of transitioning out of that. They call it a feast-famine cycle. And so, so many of us, especially young entrepreneurs or people who are sort of in business for themselves, especially service providers, a lot of people sort of live in that cycle, right? They're living check to check basically, and some client pays late, and then the next check comes, but now you're behind, so you're not catching up. And, it's just kind of this yucky cycle. Do you have any advice for, sort of how you started to move out of that? I mean, were there factors in your business, or was there, something that drove you personally, or something that sort of contributed to your ability to, I guess, get on track?
Yeah, I think, first and foremost, it was knowing what I didn't want. A lot of people are like, well, I just knew what I want, and I just knew what I wanted and all that stuff. Part of it for me was knowing what I didn't want. And what I didn't want was to be in a position where I couldn't pay a bill, or I couldn't do, I couldn't do something, right? So that was a thing for me, was, just knowing what I didn't want, right? What I didn't want. So that was the first thing. And then, secondly, I think that I remember getting my first big client, right? My first big client. And I remember looking at that first check and like never having seen that much money in one place like before. And it took a lot for me to be able to say, okay, I have this, but I don't know if I'm going to get another one that looks like this. And I need to be able to prepare for this. So it wasn't until, I'll tell you, it was probably not until maybe 2010 before I really got serious, right, about money management and all of that. And it was really because I knew what it looked like to live paycheck to paycheck. I knew even when I started my business, what it looked like to not be able to pay a vendor. And I also knew what it looked like to rack up all of these late charges and overdraft fees, and I mean, just all of that stuff. And I thought about what I could be doing with all of that extra money that I'm putting out that I didn't have to. So it was all about that. And then just being able to look to the future and know that I wanted to build something that was bigger than me. And that forced me into making better decisions and, and all of that stuff. But it didn't happen overnight. Like even when I think the light bulb switched, the money didn't switch like the light bulb did. So it took a while to get there, but at least I put one foot in front of the other, and I just said, okay, we're going to start this. And it was difficult to the point where I literally had to, so that I could stay on track, I had to get envelopes, and I would split money up in the just so that I can keep myself, because if I saw it in one place, I thought I could use it, right? So I literally started breaking stuff up. And when the envelope was empty, the envelope was just empty, and I had to wait till I got some more money in the envelope again. But I literally had to do that. I had to force myself into it, and that's how it worked for me.
That's a great budgeting technique. I've heard of other people doing that as well, just separating it up. Like, this is my car payment. This is what I get to eat with. This is what I get for this. And it really makes you kind of think, it's not never ending. I actually can only live on $100 a month with food or whatever. It really kind of opens your eyes to, hey, budgets are important. And
right. It was so funny because when you use the money that was in the eating out, envelope, you're like, oh well, right? So it makes you appreciate ramen noodles. And like now, even to this day, guys, I still love ramen noodles.
Oh, yes. It's all about the egg. You crack the egg and you do
the hot sauce. Oh my goodness! Yeah. And look, now it's a whole thing, right? They have ramen restaurants. Like it's a whole thing now. So it's just funny.
Yeah, no, I love those. I've been to a couple of those ramen spots, and I will say I still feel wrong paying like $13 for a bowl of ramen. But every time I kick myself for not starting that one. Because I go, oh, okay, somebody's making $13 a bowl of ramen right now.
Exactly.
This stuff costs a dime.
They only paid 17 cents for all the ingredients.
Yeah, no. So one of the things that was on your bio sheet that I actually thought was kind of interesting, I thought maybe you could talk to, is this idea of maintaining a balanced rhythm. I think I have some idea of what that means, but I think, and we probably touched on aspects of it, but I wonder if you talk a little bit about just sort of that, what that means to you.
Yeah, it's the whole idea that, I'm, all up and I'm bubbly and, all of that. But when I hit a hurdle, I let myself go over the hurdle, right? And I roll with it, right? It's also the idea that I've learned that you can work smarter and not harder. Like I used to kill myself staying up at, late hours at night and, all of that stuff. And I don't have to do that anymore because I work smarter now. I used to not be able to go on vacations with my family because I was working all the time. I used to have this saying, oh, I'm a business owner. I work 25/8. That's not cute. It's not cute. It's literally not sustainable, but I used to actually do that. So now I understand that I'm going to get done what I could get done. But that means that I'm also going to have to be intentional about maximizing my time, multiplying myself, right? So I had to learn that, while I can't clone myself technically, I could definitely multiply myself in that I can pour into others. I can record what I can. So when I do get to a point where I cannot record a live podcast or whatever, at least I have 4 or 5 episodes in the back. I don't even have a podcast. But I go live in my Facebook group and all of that stuff every day at 1:00. But what I've done is I have some stuff recorded. So when I get to a point where I can't do it, I'm not stressed out about it because I've already planned for it. So multiplying myself, maximizing my time, learning how to say no. And that took some practice, like literally some practice. I remember getting in the mirror, like get in the mirror. No, no, now, hell now, just all of that, right? But just being able to do that so that you don't feel like you have to do it all. And that's where that balanced rhythm comes in. You are being productive at work, but you are being productive at home. You're being present for your family. You are living out loud in front of the folks that it matters to and all of that stuff. So it's really just balanced, but you're doing it like clockwork. It's rhythm, right? You're just doing it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I know, like, even in my own life, like I work in marketing and advertising, and the culture is to kill yourself and work all night and all that kind of stuff. And I remember for the longest time when people would be like, oh, hey, how's it going? I'd always be like, oh, I'm so busy. I'm busy. And I've actually caught myself slipping back into that a little bit lately. And I started making this conscious shift where it was when people would ask me how I'm doing, it would be like, oh, I'm doing great, or I'm, better now, or, whatever. But I would try and just get it off of this idea that I'm too busy for everything, mm-hmm. and, shift into something that was much more, I guess, present in that moment. Right. So it's, I think that's a really good point. And it sort of, wraps up this discussion about mindset. Hey, as we're getting here to the last couple minutes of the show, can we just kind of hear from you where people can get in touch online, where they can find you, websites, that kind of good stuff?
Yeah. So the name of my company is AndTech Solutions. So our web address is andtechllc.com. On social media, we are AndTech. Personally, I am Myoshia Boykin-Anderson on Facebook. I am Miss Myoshia on Instagram. Also, I just created this private Facebook group. I kind of mentioned it a little while ago. It's called Business Empowerment Through Technology. The acronyms are BET. So I typically will say, you bet, encouraging people, you bet. But it's all about empowerment. And we talk about, mindset and personal stuff and everything. I'm in there every day at 1:00 really quickly. Like I try to not be in there more than like 11 or 12 minutes. I just get in there, say something quick and pop out. But it's really been interesting to engage with people. So again, the name of the Facebook group is Business Empowerment Through Technology, and the acronyms are BET. And I would, love to see people there.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And I enjoyed our conversation. And thanks again.
Yeah, no, this was awesome, Myoshia. It was great. A pleasure meeting you, and really grateful for your time.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I had a blast. Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks to everybody who tunes in this week and every week, and we'll see y'all next time.